Good morning. Happy Wednesday. It is Wednesday, the 17th of September. Can you believe we're already into September? And it is cloudy outside. When I was up earlier this morning, it didn't look like there were any clouds in the sky. But now that of course, it was dark, but I'm pretty sure there weren't clouds. So I think there's a storm system coming in. My understanding is there's a 50% chance of rain over the next 3 days. So there you go. We might get the remnants of whatever tropical depression, tropical storm, hurricane, whatever it was. I haven't really heard about a hurricane this year that's a threatening hurricane. That's pretty interesting. Usually by now there's been one or two threatening hurricanes. Maybe it'll just be a nice non-hurricane-y year this year. But we'll take the rain. It's kind of an unusual thing, and I'm enjoying it very, very much. I was sitting outside. I don't know if you know this, but I love to just sit outside and enjoy God's creation. I do that quite a bit, actually, probably more than I should. But I was sitting outside enjoying God's creation last night, and it's just, what a gorgeous night. What an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous night. Just sit outside and watch the sunset and the colors, and I don't know. Maybe I'm a freak of nature. I already know that. Anyway, let's see. We do not have any birthdays today. Can you believe that? Not a single birthday. I mean, I'm sure there's birthdays today. Probably 365th of our population has a birthday today. But none that I know of on my list. So I'm going to close that out. And let's see, other housekeeping items. Just enjoy the day. It's a beautiful. This is a day of grace from God. Every day is a day of grace. Every day is a day of grace from God, for sure. Although I was sitting here looking out of the window, and I can't see my little orange that I've been waiting for all year, and I don't see it dropped on the ground either. And I usually see stuff like that, so I think it's being hidden. I'm gonna have to go out and look at it. Let's get into our study, because this one, I have always been fascinated by this, and we'll see where we get into it. But we're in Leviticus chapter 25, beginning at verse 1. The Lord said to Moses at Mount Sinai, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land I am going to give you, the land itself must observe a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years sow your fields, and for 6 years prune your vineyards, and gather their crops. But in the 7th year the land is to have a year of Sabbath rest, a Sabbath to the Lord. Do not sow your fields or prune your vineyards. Do not reap what grows of itself, or harvest the grapes of your untended vines. The land is to have a year of rest. Whatever the land yields during the Sabbath year will be food for you, for yourself, your male and your female servants, and the hired worker and temporary residents who live among you, as well as for your livestock and the wild animals in your land. Whatever the Lord produces may be eaten." So this is just fascinating. So they haven't quite yet entered into the promised land. They're still wandering in the desert. And Moses is with them. Aaron is with them. They get up to the promised land. Moses doesn't go in, but Joshua leads them into the promised land, conquers the promised land. And then the Israelites have a place that they can call their own forever and ever. They go from being a nomadic tribe to a people who have land now. And of course, with land comes great responsibility. Eventually, you need a king to govern over the land. And you also begin to create places to worship God in that land. And then you have to protect those places to worship God. And it is until Jesus comes where he said, worship me and me alone. You are now the temple. All the things that Jesus does that frees us from having to have a place, a promised land. Jesus is our promised land. I guess you could say that. But on every seventh year, you do not tend the crops. Now, this is interesting. For 6 years, you prune, you meticulously guard over your crops. And then the 7th year, you don't. Although you're allowed to eat the food from it, you just don't do any work on the crops. You don't, it's just, you let it, it's not letting it lay fallow because there's still crops on it. It's basically just not working on the crops, I guess you could say. And you'd say, why in the world would God do this? This doesn't make any sense. Except that people get consumed with, if all your life is tending the crops, then you worry that if you don't get up and tend the crops, that everything's going to fall apart. And what God is asking Israel to do is to trust in him, to say, it's okay if you don't tend the crops for a year. Look, you can go a whole year without tending the crops and it'll turn out okay. Now that's a big ask of God. And yet there's a purpose for it. And the purpose is to teach the nation of Israel that it is okay to breathe for a while, to not tend the crops. There's still food there. You can still eat the food. You can go a whole year without tending the crops and you will be okay. And all of these things ultimately come down to a lesson in trust. Because we always feel like if we're not doing something, that we're failing and that everything will fall apart. And what God is trying to teach the Israelites here is that it will not fall apart. You can go a whole year. I think this is one of the lessons of fasting. As many of you know, I love to fast. And when you go a day without food or 3 days without food, or sometimes 7 days without food, which is a very difficult fast, or as somebody in the congregation did, 40 days without food, it won't kill you. Believe it or not, it won't kill you. As a matter of fact, there's some really positive health benefits if you do it right, some incredibly good health benefits. And we always were, I see these movies where some natural disaster happens and everybody, grabs food and says, we have to, we might end up having no food for 5 days. How horrible would that be? And I think to myself, yeah, 5 days without food isn't going to kill you. As a matter of fact, it's probably going to be very, very healthy for you. The whole idea of limiting, of changing your behavior to limit the things that you think you need is very, very, very healthy. Psychologically, it's healthy. Because when something happens where you think you're going to go a day or two without food, instead of panicking, you can say, I'm just going to go a day or two without food. That's no big deal. I can live with that. We had the pandemic, and I'm recording this in 2025. In 2020, there was the pandemic, and immediately people started going and getting food from everywhere, draining the shelves because, we might go a month without food. And yet if you look in your pantry, that bag of rice that's been sitting there for a year probably has enough calories in it to last a month. There's just, it honestly came down to people worrying more than just, and if I look at how many pounds overweight I am from my, starvation mode, I probably could lose 40 pounds and be okay. And 40 pounds would probably last 3 or 4 or 5 months. I could literally, it would be painful, wouldn't be eating, but I could probably go 40 days easily. Well, I probably could go 120 days easily without eating, and it wouldn't kill me. And probably you too. Now, God's not demanding that of us, but I think the whole purpose of this is to trust in God. It's to realize that that it doesn't all depend upon us and our hard work to survive, that we can go a period of time and God will still provide. It's the same thing in tithing. It's the same thing in everything that we do in life. Um, it's the same thing in serving the poor. It's the same thing. Anything that we do in this life that serves God, serves the poor, does the mission that Jesus has called us to be his hands and feet, to make disciples, all of these things require a sacrifice from humanity, or from us, from his church. And the more we learn that those sacrifices don't kill us, they actually provide tremendous blessing, then we're willing to do those things because we're not worried about the future. We know who holds the future. So we simply follow God. We we do the things that he's called us to do, and it all works out because God is in charge. And those are very, very, very powerful lessons, but they're so hard. You can't teach somebody that. You can tell them your experience, but you can't. If you tell somebody, I need you to do this for God, and they say, but if I do that, all of these things are going to happen, and I don't want those things to be happening. And you say, listen, this is a faith journey. Just do what God says and see what the benefit is. Sometimes people will do that, and they'll say, wow, that was the greatest thing ever. And sometimes they'll just say, no, that cost is too high. It's like the rich man that came to Jesus, and Jesus said, yes, you understand God's law, you understand everything, but really what separates you from the most abundant life you could possibly have is your wealth. So give it all away and come follow me. And he couldn't do it. And probably missed out on the most wonderful opportunity that anybody would ever have, because there's things in life more important than wealth. And I suppose being a follower of Jesus, maybe he would have been a disciple of Jesus, and his name would go down in history as being a follower and disciple of Jesus. Those types of things are, you can't teach somebody. And even if you tell your story to somebody, you can't teach them. It's something that people have to experience for themselves. This whole idea of Sabbath here, it is unclear as to whether or not it was really practiced, because people are afraid of the future. They feel like if they don't do what they've been doing for years and years and years, that it'll all fall apart. As a nomadic tribe, they were able to say, okay, if this land doesn't work, we'll move to the next land. If this land doesn't work, we'll move to the next one. But once you get into the land, there's this fear that if you don't do everything, everything, kings or whatever, that it'll all fall apart. And God just says, follow me, trust me. Follow my law and just do it. And if the people had done this, they probably would have never been conquered. But instead, they ignore God, and they don't do these things, and then there are the consequences that come with that. It is an age-old. Well, let's see. Let me see if I can. Let's talk about the next one, because this one is fascinating. This is called the Year of Jubilee. This is verse 8. Count off 7 Sabbath years, 7 times 7, so that the 7 Sabbath years amount to a period of 49 years. Then have the trumpet sounded everywhere on the 10th day of the 10th month, on the Day of Atonement. Sound the trumpet throughout your land. Consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. Each of you is to return to your family property and to your own clan. The 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. Do not sow, do not reap what grows of itself, or harvest the unintended vines, for it's a jubilee, and it is to be holy for you. Eat only what is taken directly from your fields. In the year of Jubilee, everyone is to return to their own property. If you sell land to any of your own people or buy land from them, do not take advantage of each other. You are to buy from your own people on the basis of the number of years since the Jubilee, and they are to sell to you on the basis of the number of years left from harvesting crops. When the years are many, you are to increase the price, and when the years are few, you are to decrease the price, because what is really being sold to you is a number of crops. Do not take advantage of each other, but fear your God. I am the Lord your God. So this is called the Jubilee year, and the whole Jubilee system. And it's a system. We talk about the Jubilee years as if it is a once every 50 years, everybody returns their land and gets it back. But it's a whole system. If you buy an airplane, every 2,000 hours, an airplane has to have an overhaul, the engine. And every 2,000 hours, you have to pull apart certain portions of the aircraft, inspect it, and put it back together again. That costs a lot of money. It's called time before overhaul, TBOH. And if you are buying an airplane and it has 1,800 hours TBOH, that means you're going to get 1,800 hours out of that engine before you have to do the major overhaul. If you buy an aircraft and it has 200 hours TBOH, it means that in 200 hours, you're not going to be able to fly that aircraft again unless you spend a lot of money. And so when people purchase an aircraft, one of the things they have to ask is, what is the time before overhaul? And because that dramatically impacts the cost of the aircraft. If there's a long time, the price is up. If it's a short time, the price is down. I mean, it might even be zero, for crying out loud, because that cost to have a major overhaul is not cheap. It could be, it could be $100,000. It could be a lot of money to rip apart that engine, look at it, and put it back together again. So, but it is guided by federal regulation. The same is true then with crops. He said it's the number of crops left before the Jubilee year is what you're really buying. Because on the Jubilee year, no more crops. The land is, you're going to go back to your land. It's going to be your land. It's nothing. But it has to be done kind of systematically in order to do that. Everybody kind of has to count. Okay, we have 24 years left, and there's that many crops, so that's what I'm going to pay. And it goes down and down and down until next year is, I get one crop out of it, and that's it. Now, the thing is that there is no recorded evidence of them ever actually doing this. And Nehemiah kind of, if you remember, Nehemiah was the cupbearer to the king, and he went back to Israel, and he tried to do some of these things, but the people really didn't, it was hard, basically, because it hadn't been in their mind to do this. Now, there's so many things I want to say about this. It's hard to know where to start, but the thing is that what happens in life is that the wealthy become wealthier and the poor become poorer. It's just a natural progression of life. And I believe the whole idea of the Jubilee was to reset everything so that it could start from zero again. Because if you get to go back to your ancestral land that was taken from you, or not taken, that you sold, but if the land has no value in year zero, it's Jubilee, it sets up a pattern of economic justice, I guess you could say, that, okay, this family, every 50 years, they get to go back to their land that was theirs originally and start over again. So and everybody gets to do that. It's like we all start over again. And that way, it prevents the rich, it resets the slate, I guess you could say. It resets the slate. And if you don't reset the slate periodically, then what happens over a period of a number of years is that the people who, for whatever reason, have wealth will use that wealth to gain more wealth. And typically they'll oppress the poor. And this is exactly what all the minor prophets talked about, is how there was injustice. How, like in the book of Amos, it says that the rich people were using the court system to bribe judges, bribe witnesses, draw people into court, and take poor people and make them even more poor through the justice system. And this is how it works in life. I'm sorry, it says that justice is blind, but even the blindest justice system, if you have $100 million or $1 billion, you can probably hire attorneys and tax accountants and all, and find ways to shield your income so that you can continue to get wealthier. And you will be able to use tax codes and systems so that you can continue to get wealthier, and the people whom you go after will probably get poorer. Years ago, I was in a business, and when there was a lawsuit, typically the people who won the lawsuit were the ones who had more money to hire better attorneys. It's just, I know that sounds, I know that doesn't, I mean, it doesn't sound right? It sounds, we want to believe that justice is justice. But when it comes right down to it, if you are extremely wealthy, you can hire the best attorneys and you can get away with murder. And that's just the way that the justice system works. We don't like to say it out loud. We like to believe that that doesn't happen. But by the time you get to my age and you see how the world works, you realize that's pretty much how it works. Even in our beautiful country, which I love so much, probably has the best legal system there is in the world, it's still hard to get quote unquote true justice. It's just hard. And the whole idea behind Israel and these days of rest was to trust in God that it will all work out. It's okay if you are wealthy to go back to zero again. I mean, I don't think a wealthy person would, but it's okay at least to use a portion of your wealth to give the land back to the person who originally owned it, right? And the society won't fall. It'll be a hardship, for sure. And it'll be a blessing for others, for sure. But it kind of levels out the playing field in some ways. Because most countries that die from within. What happens just look at the world, is that as you get this income disparity and this, not even income, but this power disparity, that the people at the very bottom are so poor and they are so hopeless that the whole society falls apart. And what God's trying to do is to kind of level that out every 50 years so that the society doesn't fall apart. And I think probably that one of the downfalls of Israel is that they simply didn't follow God's law. They simply didn't do these things that were commanded. And if they did do them, it's not recorded anywhere. But when it talks about having good kings and bad kings, I think the good kings followed God's law and tried to enforce some of these things. And the bad kings didn't, all the people that they wanted to be associated with were wealthy. So why would they disrupt the system? I honestly believe, and I'm not a socialist. I'm not a communist. I'm not I believe you should work hard for your wealth. You should work hard for your wealth, but you should also work hard, period, right? No matter, and So that's what, but I do believe that there is truth to the fact that when societies get completely out of whack between the haves and the have-nots, it causes revolution. And that revolution resets the playing field. And once the playing field is reset, it all starts over again, and it creates new winners and new losers in your society. And so if you want to avoid a revolution, pay attention to the systems and see if there's a way to kind of equalize the system. In the United States, we have a very, very progressive tax code that if you are poor, you basically pay no taxes. And if you're wealthy, you have to pay a lot of taxes. That kind of goes in that direction. But it also creates a lot of animosity between the classes, the wealth classes. And there is no perfect system. Let me put it that way. There's no perfect system. And I do believe I would love to see a society follow the Old Testament law just to see if it works. Like, let's try it. Let's try it for 200 years and see, does it really, really, really create a just society for humanity? And if it does, maybe that's the way we should go. Yeah, I would love to do more research on this and maybe even write a book on it. I mean, I've got 1,000 books out there waiting to be written. But anyway, maybe we'll spend some more time on this tomorrow because it's such a fascinating concept. The whole idea of Jubilee and letting the land lay fallow and trusting God and saying, okay, God, I don't need a lot of wealth because I've got you and you are my wealth and I can't take it with me anyway. So why even bother? And there are people that live that way. I believe the Desert Fathers from the early church lived that way. And they lived the most wonderful, fascinating lives of any people alive. And our society is so complex, you can't get away from some level of finances just to navigate through. And that's a problem too. Could we solve that problem? Anyway, we'll spend more time on this tomorrow because it is probably one of my most favorite topics. Just philosophically, it's one of my favorite topics. All right, let's close in prayer. Gracious God, thank you for today. And thank you for this beautiful storm that's coming in and the rain that could potentially come with it. And thank you for this time together. Until we meet again, keep us in your grace. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, let's see. I don't know where we ended up. Verse 13. We'll try that. 25, 13. Okay, we'll do that Thursday. All right. So thank you so much for joining me. I pray that you have a blessed day, and we will see you tomorrow. Maybe. Yeah. God's blessings. Bye.